from his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You're also watching us on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So however you're tuning into the show, thank you so much for watching and listening to Wake Up Call every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Appreciate your patience this morning as we got set and ready to go. Jason Lucas here with us on the air for hour number one, a little bit into hour number two, and then hour number two with Ross Turetsky joining us here. Kind of awesome because in reality of all of this, it's kind of like the groomsman that will be at my upcoming wedding at some point in my life. So, you know, we might look back at the show and call it the groomsman broadcast. I don't know. So it's kind of fun. I guess I told Jason he's going to be in my wedding party now. So, Jay, what do you think of that?
Just don't dress me in pink. I'll be ready to go.
Well, you know, normally it's, you know, somebody doesn't like the dress on the women's side, but the guys don't seem to really complain about, you know, what you have to wear. I just, when I was at Ross's wedding, it was just cold. I was freezing because we didn't have jackets. We only had like the vests. And so, I mean, Ross can tell you it was like 41 degrees outside. It was an October wedding. So it was definitely cold, but also definitely worth it. And I figured out I can kind of low-key play the piano, which I've never been taught how to do. I was just messing around with the piano in the room while we were waiting to go out there. And Ross came over to me and he goes, "That sounds really good, buddy." And I go, "Great. I don't know anything that I'm doing right now." So,
wow.
Yeah.
The next Ray Charles.
Yeah. So a little bit of piano, a little bit of fun, and see what we can come up with. But, you know, speaking of relationships and connections, I brought you on today's show because you and I talk about stuff all the time, and I'm always amazed and moved by the people that you know and the connections that you have. You really seem to have built these beautiful bridges in life. And so I kind of want to open the door to you, really in general, to start things off, of, you know, who is maybe your favorite person that you've ever met and built a genuine relationship with in the sports world?
I mean, probably the best one I'd say is you, actually.
I did not expect that at all. I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, Jay Gruden, and I'm just like, I did not.
If I'm not name dropping people who, you know, were in the NFL and stuff, I mean, like you and me, like our relationship's pretty cool. I mean, you bring me on your show all the time and I get some exposure and it's awesome. So I'd say our relationship is as genuine as anybody through the years. I hear from you more often than I hear from Jay or anybody. So I'd say you, number one. Jay is a good one because Jay was like one of the first people in sports that really reached out to me and kind of took me under his wing and talked to general managers for me and got me jobs with him. And, you know, that was awesome too, obviously, because without that, I'm not even in sports or even there at the Florida Tuskers for you to meet. So A and B. One A and one B.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, I mean, again, I'm honored, I'm flattered. I didn't expect that. I didn't ask the question knowing that at all. And so I really did it. And, you know, but no, I mean, that's very kind of you. And, you know, I mean, we met through this world. So if not for the Florida Tuskers, you know, we don't meet at that time. So I think that, you know, having that connection and you and I really both caring about sports and about building everybody up, I think it's a true definition. You know, covering the UFL and covering the Tuskers, you working in the front office for them, me covering them, just a decision that I had made, something I wanted to do. You know, I feel like us meeting was amidst the true definition of who we are, which is, you know, understanding redheaded stepchildren and understanding that, everybody deserves to have a voice, and everybody should have their message be shared, and nobody should be left on the cutting room floor. I think, I know that you and I met through the fact that we truly don't believe that anybody should be discredited or unaccounted for.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. We go through life, especially in sports, it's all about the connections you make and the bridges. You build those bridges, and you never know. You never know where you're going to end up, or who knows who. And it's just like something I did this past year. You never know. If you're a high school kid playing football, you never know who's watching you. I was watching those kids at Seminole. I know I mention them almost every time you have me on now. I'm watching the kids play at Seminole, and there's one of them that's just standing out to me like crazy that had absolutely no offers. And, of course, Cortez Hankton, a guy that you and I know well from Tuster's days, I reached out to him, the wide receivers coach at Georgia, and the next thing you know, the kid's tweeting he got an offer from the University of Georgia, and the coach is saying, hey, thanks, Jason, you told me about him. Like, that's awesome. I mean, and kid ends up in South Florida. That's where he's going to play this coming season. But it's pretty crazy to think, like, the way the connections work in sports, and you see them work through the draft when you watch the draft, all the different connections. UCF just had we just had Tay Gowan get drafted over the weekend to the Arizona Cardinals, where the wide receivers coach, of course, is Sean Jefferson from UCF. So I would imagine he was in the draft room saying, hey, we got to go get my guy. So connections are everywhere, man.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. I think what you and I have definitely realized is that life, when you do these things, when you cover these teams and you cover these players that maybe people aren't focused on and maybe people aren't talking about or talking to, it really creates such an amazing world for us. For those of us that care, I think it's repaid a millionfold. Covering the Florida Tuskers of the UFL, the United Football League, at the time, I look back on it, and if not for the Tuskers, I don't meet you. I don't meet Jay Gruden, John Gruden, Doug Flutie, Cortez Hankton, my guy Benny, as well as Super Bowl champion Dominique Rhodes, Brooks Bollinger, Avion Kaysen, and on and on and on and on and on. I think Ike Hilliard at the time. So I mean, it's just Joe Theismann. I mean, I don't have these fantastic relationships with literally covering that team brought me 2 Super Bowl champions, the Gruden brothers. It's John Gruden endorsed my show. Theismann, I believe we did a thing to endorse it, and it's crazy. I mean, Dominique Rhodes gave me one of the best advice pieces that I use all the time. I literally use it at probably, at least once every single year, if not multiple times. And I remember exactly where I was standing outside of the old Citrus Bowl, which is Camping World Stadium now, in Orlando, where the Tuskers played. And we were walking out, and he was going to his car, and we were talking. We were just talking about a lot of stuff, and I was really kind of lost. And I felt sad. I felt down. I felt like I was at a crossroads. I didn't understand why things weren't working out, if I was doing things the right way with my energy and my positivity and my hard work. And I just didn't feel like appreciated or seen. And Dominique looked at me and he said something to me that I will never, ever forget. It's one of the quotes that I need to put on the wall here in the studio. He said, if you chase money, you'll chase it forever. If you chase your dreams, money will chase after you, and eventually it'll catch you. And I never, ever, ever forgot that. He was like, you chase the money, you'll chase it forever. You chase your dreams, the money will chase you. And I hold that so near and dear to my heart. If you do what you love and you love what you do, your life will take care of itself. But if you go after the rat race, you'll be running like a rat every day, and you'll never be yourself. So I just think that, those words, I asked Joe Theismann to help me with a person who was going through cancer treatment and a fundraiser, and I said, hey, can you just send a football signed? And he sent one of his jerseys, this massive jersey, signed, and 2 pictures signed, And then he was like, Dan, I can't get it there by Friday. Is it okay if I get it to them by Monday? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, Joe. I mean, like, I just remember being totally blown away I remember Avion talking with me about his son. Like, I just, without covering that team, you know, I don't meet all these people, and so many people would not cover a team like that because it wasn't established. They hadn't won a championship. It wasn't the NFL. And so it just really goes to show that, you know, I am a true believer that you and I, who are caregivers in many ways of the definition, by caring and loving and giving everybody an opportunity, you and I have incredible stories because God puts all these people in these beautiful nooks and crannies that people don't go to, and, you know, people like you and I do. And so, you know, how did you meet this guy? And how'd you get this? How'd you get that? Well, we covered one team in Orlando. I mean, that's how we did it. And I feel like it's a true testament to, if you reach out to the world and you give back and you care and you give everybody an equal opportunity, the most amazing things will happen in your life that you don't even know are on their way.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, all that you just covered there. There's one person from the Tuskers that you left out, and he's probably the most famous one. He is the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams now, Sean McVay. And he was a guy that was like in a back office somewhere almost the whole time. I don't even remember ever being introduced to Sean McVay. And you know, I was tight with all the coaches right down the line.
Yeah. And
I don't even ever remember meeting him. And Sean McVay is probably easily the most famous of everybody that was in that whole deal. And I wish I had gone back in that back office and built a relationship there. Sometimes it's the ones that you don't even get to build that you missed. And yeah, so it's actually cool to be like, hey, McVay, you know, was part of that Tuskers deal, and that was only 11 years ago, and he's been a coach in the NFL for about 5 now. So pretty crazy to think, like, just everybody that was involved around that whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, you know, it is, though. It's like, you know, it's that reality of, you know, something that I just really, I mean, truly believe in, of, you know, if you go out and you give everybody a chance, I mean, that's how things happen. I remember the first interview I did with Superpowered Pop. And the first interview, I was at New York Comic-Con. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any relationships with any actors or any actresses or any illustrators or writers or anybody. And I was going up and down Artist Alley. And it's this huge part of the Javits Center where they just have all these writers and artists and everybody from comic books and graphic novels. And I went up to this guy, and I don't know what drew me to him. I mean, I think I saw, the Spider-Man behind him, obviously. But I walked up to Tom Lyle. And I said, hi, I do a show. This is what I do. I would love to interview you. And I was just going up to total strangers. I mean, it was essentially humbling me and putting me in a place where, 17 years ago, I did that with sports. I had never known anybody, and I'm just going to go do an interview. Well, that was what I did with Superpowered Pop with entertainment. I said, okay, now you're in a world that you haven't been in before, and you have to build your rapport. And so all you got to do, Dan, is get one interview. Once you get one, then you get 2. When you get 2, you get 10. When you get 10, you get 20, and then you go from there. And I asked this guy, Tom Lyle, if I could talk to him. And he said, yeah, come back in a little while, and we'll do something. And so he's doing commissions, he's drawing and whatnot. He has me come into this place. He goes, is it okay if you sit here while we do it? And I said, sure. And he put up a chair next to him in his booth while people were coming up to him, and we did an interview. And it was like a 40-some-odd minute interview. And at the end of it, I just thought, wow, this is really incredible. Thank you so much for giving me your time and making me feel truly appreciated. Well, Tom Lyle, it turns out, the person I was drawn to, was actually the artist and creator of my favorite version of Spider-Man, which is the Scarlet Spider. I had no idea I was meeting the creator. I had no idea that I was this very humble, low-key guy. I had no idea in a million years that God had brought me to this guy that I just thought, hey, you know what? Let me just say hi. He did Spider-Man. He worked on that. Let me just talk to him. Had no idea who he was. Had no idea that he did the Scarlet Spider. Ended up building a friendship with him. He ended up caring so much that I asked to do an interview when I had my show take a booth in New York Comic Con on the main floor with 160,000 people walking around. He walks all the way out of Artist Alley, left what he was doing, and came to me to sit down and do an interview just uninterrupted. He told me how much he appreciated it. He complimented so many things that I value and keep close to my heart. And within the last couple of years, he passed away. And I didn't know immediately when it happened. And I saw his wife post about it. And I just remember how kind and true and good that man always was toward me. And I have a commission that he did. I gave him a comic book cover, and I said, could you draw the face of the Scarlet Spider for me? And he said, sure. And when I went to pick it up, he looked around and he said, I can't find it. He said, somebody must have taken it. He goes, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody take something that they know they didn't give me? And he goes, well, this is what I meant for that person, so you take it. It costs more. It took me more time, but they took yours, so I'm not going to charge you anymore. You take this. And it was a full-length Scarlet Spider in a city. And it was so much more than what I bargained for. And it was the last thing he gave me. And it was so fitting of him because he was so much more than what I bargained for. And to build a friendship with the creator of a character that I love, and I had no idea it was happening. So it truly goes to show, when you say hello to everyone, you have no idea what special someone you may be bringing into your life. And Jason, you and I are friends because of it, and you embody it to say that one team, Sean McVay, Jay Gruden, John Gruden, Joe Theismann, Doug Flutie, Avion Kaysen, Dominique Rhodes, and on and on and on and on, just so happened to all be converging on the same place within the same couple of years. We met the rogues gallery of awesomeness because we decided to just give something a chance. And if that's not incredible, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, put it that way, it sounds like ESPN should be calling us to do a 30 for 30. Florida Tuskers, what if I told you all these people were in the same place at the same time? Because, yeah, I mean, when you look around that story you just told, by the way, almost brought me to tears. I don't want to completely ignore everything you said because I was sitting here like, wow, that's crazy. But the point you were making is perfect because you never know. You never know who people are going to become 5 years, 10 years down the road. You never know what they're going to mean to your life. Me, I cover high school football, which is mind blowing to see where some of these kids end up. I can list at least one or two, guys that I've covered that they made it either deep in college or to the NFL, and I look at them and I'm like, wow, okay, I covered this guy in high school. How old am I now, by the way? And it's just crazy. You never know where anybody's going to end up, what they're going to end up doing, and you're going to be sitting there watching them on TV like, man, when that guy was in high school, or man, when that guy lived in Orlando, like I look at Jay Gruden with Washington football team the last 6 years that he was the coach there. Like, that was crazy because Jay was the head coach of the Predators here in Orlando and somebody that I looked up to, and he didn't have to take me under his wing the way he did. He didn't have to tell me that the stuff I wrote was better than what they write in the Orlando Sentinel, or, hey, Jason, if you can take this job with us, that'd be awesome because, we need a really good writer to come in and do feature stories on the players and stuff. I was like overtaken with emotion because that was my my first connection in sports is the one that's gotten me my jobs and different opportunities around. And then obviously, I mean, plenty of other connections have gotten me, you know, to cover events for the Miami Herald, Orlando Sentinel, Daytona Beach News Journal, right on down the line. I mean, I've worked for many different newspapers and done different things. I've worked for the NFL Network, giving stats during an arena football game that was live, to guys that you'll see on Sundays. Charles Davis is the guy that calls NFL Now. You know, that's somebody that I'm like, wow, I worked with Charles Davis, and he's probably the best one that you hear on Sundays as far as color commentators go.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing, is that, again, you know, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to cross paths with, and that's why it's not good enough. I mean, yeah, we all have bad days, we have rough moments, but it's not good enough to mail it in at any point. It's not good enough to just, you know, I don't need to say hi to this person. Like, you never, ever know. And that is the beauty of life, is that if you and I didn't lead with our best foot forward, and we didn't, you know, believe in a God up above, believe that, you know, things happen for a reason, if we didn't push ourselves to be who we are, and that's the thing that I love about you, and that's why we have become, you know, we met as total strangers, we worked on different sides of the coin, and we ended up becoming fast friends. And, you know, I mean, if you want to learn anything about life, folks, from total strangers to working relationship to being friends to now being like brothers, to me being my brother and Jason Lucas, and now I'm the uncle of his 3 children. Like, I mean, you don't write a better story than, if I didn't cover that team and he didn't work on that team and God didn't put us in that place at that time and we didn't say hello and use our free will, and I didn't show him my work ethic, he didn't show me his work ethic, I'm not the uncle of Carter, Carly, and Gracie, one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. It's not an article, it's not a show, it's not, you know, a Super Bowl champion. One of the greatest accomplishments of my life that I talk about almost daily is my, you know, my nephew and my 2 nieces that belong to Jason and Kristen. So, you know, and that is what sports does. That is why Wake Up Call is, the tagline is where sports meets life, because it changes lives every day. And it's not about just the Super Bowl champion or the NCAA tournament champion or the person that set this record. It's about all the people that you wouldn't know about if Jason didn't write about them or make phone calls about them and try and help them get recruited. You wouldn't know them if they didn't come on this show. You know, like, there's something to be said about my greatest interviews sometimes are with walk-ons and with people that you know, will tell you themselves, nobody cares about me. And I said, that's ridiculous. You know, I mean, I had one of the greatest moral, kind of pushing, opening me, realizing things. It was one of the greatest advice pieces that I needed at the time with Joe Combs. And Joe Combs was the first walk-on to hit a 3-pointer in Syracuse basketball history. And, you know, it's not Derek Coleman, it's not Billy Owens, it's not John Wallace, it's not Carmelo Anthony, it's not Jerry McNamara, it's Joe Combs. And Joe was so flattered that he could be on the air, and I'm on the other side of him going, everything you said to me today I needed to hear. Like, you changed my life by being on my show, and if I would have never reached out to you, or if I would have thought, oh, he's a walk-on, oh, he scored 3 points, oh, he did this, if I thought that way, which a lot of people do, I wouldn't have had someone get me through a tough time that they didn't even know I was having. So there's a lot to be said about the fact of being on your best behavior, putting your best foot forward, always showing your greatest work ethic, no matter how many hours of sleep you've had or how many times you've been beaten down, because those people could turn around and give you the honor of being an uncle or an aunt or a best man at a wedding or simply someone that they want to break bread with at their table. You never know who you're going to meet. And Jason, I mean, we are the perfect success story of leading with your best foot forward, giving your all, and trying to build a good rapport for yourself. Because it started in the professional world, and it turned into the fact that, like, I literally go around talking about Carter, Carly, and Gracie all the time, I was reminded how deeply Kristen wants me to find happiness, and you. And, you know, I mean, you drove to see me this past week to have dinner. You know, you drove almost 2 hours home and an hour there, 3 hours round trip to spend probably 3 hours with me. And, you know, you can't buy this stuff. You can't put it in a bottle. You just have to really understand that sports does meet life, and when it does, you got to be ready for it.
Oh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You cut out there for a second. No, yeah, man. I mean, the girls love you. Kristen loves you. I love you, man. We've come a long way in 11 years. It's just absolutely crazy to think all the things that we've gone through the years, and we're still here. We're still doing it, and we beat the pandemic and got to see each other a couple times. And man, dinner was awesome. Getting to meet your mom was awesome. Seeing where you come from.
Yeah.
I gotta get up there to Syracuse, man. Like I told you, man, I gotta get up there eventually and get to hang out up there for football or basketball or whatever, and we'll do our thing and go to some good restaurants up there. I'm looking forward to when I'm able to make it.
Yeah, you know, and what I love is at the drop of a dime, I could say, hey, Jason, I want to do a show at this restaurant, and you'd be like, okay, what are we talking about? And you know, there's, and I want you to know that I appreciate that. And Ross, you know, Turetsky coming up here in just a little bit, in the same respect, you are two people that I can, at the drop of a hat, say, I want to do a show, I want to do this, I want to talk about that, and you guys don't say no ever, and it's just there's a beauty in the fact of me, you know, kind of running through life at times and having to do certain things. And so, like, I know if you came up here and I was like, hey, Jay, you know, a bunch of things happened, a bunch of dominoes fell a certain way, I'm heading out to the Wildcat, I need you to do a show with me. You would prepare, get out there, and you would talk like a friggin' Rhodes Scholar, and people would respect you after. And if they didn't, I would tell them to. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I know you could come up here at the drop of a dime, and we could have probably one of the greatest shows that I've ever done in 17 years. I mean, without doubt. And that says a lot about you. It says a lot about your talent. It says a lot about your care. You know, the world hears all these stories, and I'm my own boss. I mean, God's my boss, and then me. But I have the opportunity to do whatever I want on my show. And so I get to tell the background stories of, like, y'all don't understand. Like, Jason Lucas can genuinely do anything at the drop of a hat and be good at it. And that is something that I think you need to be commended for.
Well, shoot, hearing that, you know, I've been talking this week with with a local high school football coach, actually the one that won the state championship, Mr. Eric Lodge, and he told me the other day that I should come coach and teach school, and it's actually something I'm like entertaining, because I always say to people, you know, there's nothing I can't do with football, right? You know, I mean, I can cover it, I can write it, I can video it, I can play it, I can coach it, whatever you want me to do with football, I can pretty much do it except for take hits. So it's something I'm really considering actually now is maybe going into coaching and maybe, you know, adding another nugget to my experience around football and really just, you know, using my knowledge that I have to pass it down to the next generation.
Yeah, speaking here with Jason Lucas, who's been on many different sides of the coin here, and talking about in even potential new side of the coin to be a part of. What can you say about that? What can you say about, you know, the opportunity to, you know, potentially coach? Is it something that you really put thought into in the past, or is this something that's been more recent for you? And what do you? I mean, I think you would. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. But what about coaching? Has it been on your mind because you are such a student of the game? I mean, you can talk to me about interviewing a player and something about a player and and we can have that discussion, and then you can talk about, I mean, you can literally go from who they are as a person and how you've seen them grow up and all this background story about things that like really help you to know somebody, to talking about it. You can like switch right into X's and O's and say, oh, okay, yeah, he's running this route and they're going to pitch here and he's going to move this way. And, I'm seeing the slants, and every time this guy comes across the middle, this other guy shifts and he never sees it. Like you live in this world where you can talk X's and O's, and then you can also talk about, who they are as people, which I think would make you an incredible coach because you already care about them and you know the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a pretty recent thing. I covered Seminole this entire season, and Eric and I, like you said, it's all about relationships. Eric and I have gotten talking over text during the season and on into the off season, and trying to get them their rings and everything, trying to be a part of their fundraising. And, it's something he just brought up to me and was like, well, you should coach football. And I don't know. I still don't know. I'll have to ask him what he knows about me to know that I would be good at it. But, I mean, I see the game different. I see things that I feel like some coaches don't see, some players may not see, and, openings that are there, but you don't even see them. I mean, I can sit at a football game with you and pretty much tell you what play is coming sometimes. It's kind of scary at times. Like, I'll just sit there and be like, all right, this one's going right there. And then there it goes. And especially if I watch a team enough, I get to know their tendencies to where they want to go, in certain down and distances or certain matchups they're looking to get. And that's football in general. Football is a game of matchups. It's about getting your 6'4" receiver on their 5'9" DB. It's about getting your fast running back out in the flat on a linebacker. It's all about stuff like that. And, moving the ball down the field and bringing blitzes from the right places. If you're on defense, bringing blitzes, from up the middle. If they're soft up the middle, if the running back's not the best at blocking, because sometimes they'll bring in another running back that's not their usual blocking back. And you just never know, man. I don't know where I'm going to end up with everything in my life. I actually lost my bank job the other day, which I shared with you. So I am right now listening to whatever and looking at whatever, and we'll see where I end up next. But, I mean, coaching football wouldn't be bad for sure. I think I would do great at it and be able to pass down my knowledge.
That coming here from Jason Lucas with experience in the front office and in the media, sharing stories today of his incredible network and just the beauty of truly embodying where sports meets life, which is everything of which Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is. Jason, you talked about the fact of working another job outside of the sports world. People don't see this. I got into traditional radio and people are like, oh, why would you, in the beginning, they don't ask me anymore. But in the beginning it was, why did you leave? Why did you decide to leave traditional radio? And I'm like, you don't know that they pay you $8 an hour? Like like if you do a weekend show for 4 hours, they give you a $30 check, a $30 check for a week. And if you raise 30 grand like I did, and you have bosses that were like mine were, they hand you a $3,100 check at the end of the year on the $30,000 you raised. They say, thank you for doing all the work. We did absolutely nothing. We didn't support you. We didn't talk about you. We blocked almost everything you tried to do. We didn't even want to do a promo for you. And at the end of the year, the 30 grand that you raised by yourself that you can live off of, they hand you a $3,000 check. I could have gotten food stamps. And, people don't tell you those stories. They don't tell you that, you're doing a million things that are highly intensive and needs your attention all the time. That when you're working with a team like the Predators or the Tuskers or whatever it may be, that you are, running PR, you're running fundraisers, you're putting out articles, you're talking with the team, you're going to practices, you're trying to get players looked at, you're scouting. And on top of all of that, you got to go work a bank job because this job doesn't pay, or it doesn't pay enough. And how many times have you or I done a job where we get told we're doing one job and we end up doing 8 and we get paid for half of one? So, the world of really truly being in love with this is not talked about. And so I'd love to get your insight on it, Jason, because you and I both know what it's like to have a paycheck that is massively disrespectful, but do something that gives us such a rewarding life.
Or bounce.
Yeah, or it bounced. Yeah.
So like when I was with the Florida Tuskers, I mean, I loved it. I lived it. I was there at practice every morning. I was, after practice grabbing a player to do interviews and try to get the feature stories done. I had to get comments from Jay on each single player I was writing about. My articles, they probably all read very close to the same because I would do the same thing every day. I'd get the player, and then I'd get Jay to talk about the player because the players come from all sorts of different places and don't necessarily have that relationship to talk about each other yet. So it's not like, in the pros where they've played together 3 or 4 years. In these minor leagues, the guys are all new to each other. So they probably read pretty much the same, but yeah, I'll never forget it, man, going to the bank, and I had, no money in my account. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't we just get paid? And, I had just put the check in a couple days earlier. I called the bank, and they're like, no, man, that check bounced. I'm like, what? So that happens, and I was only making $1,500, and that's, you go back to 2 years ago with the Alliance Football League, man, what went on with them as far as they ran out of money really fast. These minor leagues, man, they run out of money so fast, and it's something that's not going to get fixed until the NFL decides to put their own money and their own brand behind it so that they have their own kind of minor league for these guys that come out of college and they don't get drafted. But it keeps them playing football. It keeps them getting looked at. I think it's something this year I'm noticing with the FCS playing right now in the spring. It's something interesting to watch and kill time until the fall. So I don't see the lose in it for the NFL as far as the minor league is concerned. But yeah, a lot of labor of love for guys like you and me that just love the game and just love being around the game and just love to even just be the smallest part of it. And for me at this point, it's all about, I just want to be part of a championship. I really do. I want to be part of that and get that gaudy ring on my finger. And I talked about this just last week when I did the Pred Talk show. I really just want to be a part of it and let my knowledge help somebody win a championship. And that way I can also say I was a part of the on the field, not just the off the field.
Yeah, and that's something too. I've gotten to be a part of teams where they say, you are just as much a part of this championship. This championship is yours too, and I want that too. And I don't think you and I have really ever talked about this, but I genuinely have thought about coaching myself. I coach soccer, and I love that. I had never played. I had to learn the game as I went. And, but I coached it, and I fell in love with those kids. I really did. And, but basketball, I could coach it in my sleep. Football, there was a team up here that needed help. And, they kind of told me, hey, if you work with us, and Jason, you've been here too. Hey, if you work with us and you do this, that, whatever, when we have money, we'll give it to you. But when you work for free, people like that it's free forever. And so in most cases, and so for me, it was trying to say hey, no. And I remember at one point, I became essentially the quarterback's coach. It was, hey, you need to go work with these guys. You have, these 3 guys in your room, and we need you to work with them. And we need you to really work on this one kid. And I just remember going this is one of the greatest accomplishments of my life to be asked to be a quarterback coach. But I quickly didn't really push to continue to do it because I was filming the game, or I was filming practice so that they could have tape to look at. I was interviewing the players. I was promoting the team. I was getting tickets out and trying to get people to games. And then on top of that, I was a quarterback's coach. And I said to myself, this is one of the greatest accomplishments and achievements in my life to be considered a quarterback's coach, but I'm not getting paid for any of this, and I'm driving far away and I'm doing all this stuff. I won't do this to myself. So it was like a great honor, but it came from a poor situation. And literally and figuratively just a poor situation. And so for me it was like, wow, I would have loved to have done it, but I wanted to be respected. And I think that's, your time needs to be respected, your energy needs to be respected, or else what are you doing? And I just kept thinking to myself, if I say yes to these people and I'm working for them like 8 hours a day, it's going to affect everything else that I get paid to do, and I'm not getting paid to do anything here. So, I think that was something that really had to pay attention to it. But I mean, I don't think I ever told you that story, that I became a quarterback's coach and I was like watching, filming practice, and I just got to a point where I was like, are you guys going to pay me? And I asked 2 or 3 times and never got a clear answer, and I walked away, and I didn't want to walk away from the coaches, I didn't want to walk away from the players, but I just couldn't justify it. Yet I got the taste of what it would be like to be a quarterback's coach, and I'm like, this is really awesome in the right situation.
Yeah, I think jobs like that are easier to justify when you're single, not when you are married or have kids. People who are depending upon your time to be paid time. So, yeah, I mean, back in the day, I did, that's awesome, by the way, that you did that, and speaks to the person that you are. And unfortunately, those leagues, man, they just don't make a lot of money. But yeah, no, it just reminds me of when I did arenafan.com back in the day, and I was writing articles, and it was for free. Like, it was for free. It was, you get into the game, good for you. We're letting you into the game. There's no payment involved for anything, that your interviews, nothing. Oh, okay. And I was just so thankful to go to the game, and I was single, so I could do that. And I didn't have anybody like, wait, you're not making money? Yeah. So, yeah, it's all situational, because there are plenty of volunteers that make football happen at every level.
Yeah.
There are plenty of volunteers around that are doing things, handing out programs or whatever, what have you. Those people if they get paid, they don't get paid much at all levels of sports. Doesn't matter what you're doing. So, yeah, pretty much you're working on your own, and it's that labor of love, man, because a lot of people in our country especially, we love sports, and we just want to be part of the game. It doesn't matter how much we're getting paid. So, for me personally, like, I have to get paid now, whatever I do, it's got to be for pay, because I can't explain that to my wife or to my kids, like, that I'm working for free.
No, and I think the thing that, and to clarify my side of it, was if I felt respected or I felt like there was a plan, you and I mean, the whole motif of what we're talking about is the sacrifices that we made to do these things, and I have no problem making that sacrifice. It's when that sacrifice you feel is being taken advantage of, and you feel like, I'm going to hurt myself in order to try and do this thing. And when you get lied to, that's what changes it for me. I mean, if it was an organization of truth and transparency, and it was an organization that really had a plan, then we're talking about something else. I think the Florida Tuskers really tried, and that's why I stayed. And that's why I was there. And people have such a misconception. I can't tell you how many people said to me, so when you cover the Jacksonville games, they pay for your flight and your hotel? And I go, what are you, on drugs? Like, I was like, they don't, yeah, they like that people are there to cover them, but they don't live off of that. So, I was like, they don't need us there. They open the door. And so, I mean, I can argue that it's important, obviously, for us to be there. It is. But, yeah, this whole, like, oh, so they put you in a hotel and this and that. And I was like, no. And they're like, well, who pays for you to travel? I said, Dan Tortora. And they're like, well, and I was like, I reinvest. I take what I get and I reinvest. I don't just go buy stupid crap. Like, I take what I always reinvest in my company. And I tell that to all the companies I work with, all the partnerships I have. I reinvest in you. Yesterday I went to Ma and Pa's, kettle corn and popcorn factory, and we have a partnership, and I reinvested immediately. It was like, here, Dan, thanks for everything. And I said, okay, well, give me this, this, and this. Like you do right by the people that do right by you. You work with people that you like to work with. You work with people that you respect, and products and services that you actually would use. And so for me, it's nothing for me to go into Ma and Pa's and get kettle corn. It's nothing for me to tell everybody that like the only Honda or the only cars I get are Hondas and they're from Honda City. Like, I put them up here on the screen right now, but it's like I went to Chick-fil-A yesterday. Avicolli's and I brought the Liverpool show there exclusively. I have the exclusive West Genesee show at the Wildcat. At Pizza Man in Beeville, I have the exclusive Baldwinsville show. So I found local restaurants to support these local kids. The Millhouse Market, it takes me a half an hour to get out there. I drive there all the time. Sometimes when the pandemic first hit, we went out there weekly, bi-weekly, or twice a week. Canine Kamp Dog Daycare and Canine Kampground's the only place I trust with Lily besides my mom. Carvel, I go there all the time. My grandmothers went there. My parents went there. Cafe Kubal, I love going there. Every day I talk about it in the morning. There's not a single day that goes by and I don't want to go there and get something to drink and something to eat. So, if you do right by people and you're honest and you're true and you're good and you mean it, it's always going to come back. And I'm not going to be surprised the day that Jason Lucas gets a prominent job in a front office somewhere where you're saying to me, man, all those years I put in and all those blood, sweat, and tears and working 2 jobs or 3 jobs and doing stuff I didn't like and having this and having that and having this team fold and having this team I really cared about and this didn't work out and this team moved. And now I'm talking to the general manager of whoever. I'm talking to, I know that, and I believe that. I genuinely believe that all your dues that you paid times a million are going to pay off. And somebody one day is just going to do you a solid, do right by you. And they're going to say, Jason, I've watched you. I have seen you. I appreciate you. I respect you. And you're going to get handed the keys to the golden ticket. And that's going to be one of the most amazing days of my life. But to me, before I see that, the character and the content of the man and the person you choose to be as a friend and as a son and as a father and as a husband now and everything that you have, like, you've already made it. You've already achieved it. You already have 3 incredible children. One that's your guardian angel and the other 2 that are guardian angels on earth for me and you and Kristen and everybody. So you've achieved greatness, but there will come a day where greatness will be paid back for all your dues. And the God that I know you believe in has not forgotten your name, and he will call that name at some point.
Yep. God's definitely got a plan, man. I appreciate all that you just said. I'm trying not to get a little misty-eyed, but yeah, man, I have gone through a lot, been through a lot, personally, professionally, football or not, sports or not, been through it all, man. I would love an opportunity at some point to make it all pay off.
And it will, because you being able to do the job is not a question. You having the passion to do the job is not a question. It's just the realization of where that fit is and whether you have to create it or it creates itself, if it's pre-existing or if you have to bring it to life. But somewhere, some way, I'm going to be standing on a field again with you, and you're going to say, "Son of a bee, we were laying on a turf field, watching the steam come up on a hot day at a Tuskers practice, and now I'm standing here talking to Coach Lucas or General Manager Lucas or whatever it is, Lucas, because someday that's going to happen. Something's going to click because you've already paid your dues, like I said, and you've already seen the angles and you know what works and you know what doesn't. You're going to be an asset to somebody if you don't just create it yourself. And when that happens, I will be the first to cover it. Gladly. and I don't care if I have to fly somewhere or what I have to do, I'll be there, because I have no problem telling everybody, you can have a coach, you can have a general manager, you can have a president, CEO, but you're not going to have this guy. And he knows the ins and outs of it. He knows how to work it. He knows how to do it. So it's not a question of if you can, it's when you will. And I think, live by that every day. It's not an if I can, it's when I will. Because if you live with that mentality, you will. And I can't wait to tell people I told you so.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward right now. There's no looking back. I mean, you just made me think about it. I've been covering sports for 21 years now. I think that's right. Since I was 17. So, yeah, 21 years now I've been doing it. I started my own Predators website when I was 17, and nobody was paying me nothing. I would pay for season tickets, go to the games, and when I got home, I'd write an article. And from that, I grew a following that got me the arena fan gig and got me the relationship with Jay. And Jay, like I said, got me the job at the Predators and then the Tuskers. And pretty crazy, man, how my story is, just because I did not graduate college. I don't have like a degree in journalism. I really just have built relationships, and my relationships have gotten me to everything I've ever had in sports. Everything I've ever had was built off of a relationship.
Yeah, and that is the key right there. Speaking here with Jason Lucas on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Relationships are everything. Relationships build unbreakable bridges. Stories build temporary puddle jumpers. I mean, that's it. It's like you better hope you can run across a bunch of leaves, because that's what you got in the water. But you build a bridge, you build it forever, and that's incredible. And I love that, because you just said it. Relationships are everything. They're what makes it. It's what builds longevity. It's relationships. People work with people they want to work with, that they like working with, that they feel good around. At the end of the day, the beginning of the day, and the middle of the day, we all want to be loved, appreciated, respected, and around people that build us up and don't tear us down. That's it. It's the essential reality of life. Relationships are everything. And they take you farther than you're going to get with any type of money, material, or anything else. So, you can only blackmail so far. You can only use money so far. You can only do things so far. But relationships, those are the things that build the bridges that cannot be broken. And, it could not be more perfectly said than that. Here with Jason Lucas. Jason, before we, sign off from this conversation for the day, you and I talked about UCF getting drafted, and you were hoping that a couple guys got drafted. 5 of them heard their names called. Richie Grant, 2nd round, 40th overall to Atlanta out of UCF, the safety Richie Grant. Cornerback Aaron Robinson, 3rd round, 71st overall to the Giants. Jacob Harris, wide receiver out of UCF, 4th round, 141st overall to the Rams. Tay Gowan, cornerback out of UCF, 6th round, 223 overall to the Cardinals. And Trey Nixon, wide receiver to the Patriots, 7th round, 242. And we know what they do with 6th and 7th round picks. So what are your thoughts on the fact that Richie Grant, Aaron Robinson, Jacob Harris, Tay Gowan, and Trey Nixon all heard their names called on this draft weekend, essentially?
Yeah, it sure speaks a lot for UCF, who have been accused of a lot of things, damaging the brand because they quote unquote claimed a national title, and it just kind of validates a lot of things, because it shows that NFL GMs, coaches, they're watching UCF play 100 days. They're seeing that our players, Richie Grant's going to be a superstar. Let's just put it the way it is. Aaron Robinson, I think, will also be a superstar. And then, right down the line, Jacob Harris was a dang soccer player. Like 4 years ago, he was recruited to play soccer. at Florida Gulf Coast and ends up at UCF walking onto the football team. And this is where he's taken himself and just paying his dues in special teams first. He was a special teamer for his first 2 years at UCF. And just in the really the last probably 5-6 games of this past season, showed a force and became someone that's hard to stop because of his height and his ability to jump and how fast he is too. So, I mean, it's crazy to see, guys like Jacob Harris get in there. Tay Gowan is a guy that, he fell down the board like crazy. Like, I was watching the draft, and in the 4th round, he was like the 10th best available on Nell's list, and he doesn't go until the 7th or 6th or whatever it was. But by the time he went, he was blessed. He's going to Arizona where there's a UCF connection there, and the wide receivers coach, Sean Jefferson. So that's pretty awesome. And Trey Nixon, I was watching just yesterday the Patriots. It was the last pick ever for one of their long time coaches. So pretty cool to see all those guys end up where they ended up. And then Marlon Williams also signed a undrafted free agent deal with the Houston Texans. So he got like a $2 million guaranteed right up front. So technically 6 guys were definitely a big part of the draft and free agency, and we're hoping to hear more because there's a couple more out there. And Otis and Greg McRae, they're just hanging out waiting to get a phone call too. So great draft. Couldn't say anything better for UCF.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing to see. The fact, and I think Marlon Williams is going to be a sleeper. I think he's going to find his way onto a team, and not only that, I think fantasy football might know his name in a maybe not too distant future. So I do believe that, and I believe it's there. So I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. And people have no idea that focus on the first round or your guys got picked in the 6th round, 7th round. You have no idea, Gardner Minshew, what he did to Jacksonville and how he's helped that team 6th round. Tom Brady, best quarterback ever, 6th round compensatory pick. Like there's so many things to be said about Mr. Irrelevant a couple years ago. Like I remember, looking at it, and it was a Trey Quinn, and Trey Quinn from SMU, fantastic wide receiver. He was Mr. Irrelevant. I was like, if that's Mr. Irrelevant, then this was a good draft. Like, there's so much to be said about how hard it is to make a team. I don't care how they make it, as long as they do it justly and morally in the right way. Like, I don't care if you're drafted 1st through 7th round, undrafted free agent, 2 years removed. It doesn't matter. Mo Neal, one of my guys out of Syracuse, needs to get a phone call. 2,560 yards rushing, and if they used him properly, he would have had over 3,000 yards as a back, if not 3,500 at Syracuse. So, and the man averaged 5 yards a carry. So, to me, it's deplorable that he doesn't have a phone call. Eric Dungy, if you like everything that you like about, the situation in New Orleans, then you call Eric Dungy. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about, you look at Taysom Hill and say, okay, if you like Taysom, then how does Eric not make sense? So there's so many people that, hopefully will get a phone call, and you can never downplay how somebody makes a team. It's the heart in the person. You can't teach it. So there's a lot to be said about that, and it brings us full circle. When you put heart into sports and you put heart into life and you lead with your best foot forward, you find your best friends, you become an uncle, and you get to tell stories about how successful someone's going to be before they even know it. So, with that being said, Jason, I never know how to say see you later, but I will see you later. And I greatly appreciate, respect, and look forward to it. And I can hear my family in the background, so please send them my love and my appreciation and hugs and kisses. And thank you for sharing a conversation today that undoubtedly has become one of the greatest ones on this show, because it's real, it's true, it's genuine life, and I already can't wait to listen back to it. So I hope other people will do the same thing.
Well, Dan, I always appreciate you, brother. I love you very much, and you guys have a great day.
All right, we'll talk with you soon.